Hey, thanks. We're just waiting for one more, are we? We'll keep going anyway. Okay, thanks for coming back, especially after pizza. It's can be difficult to stay awake, but I'll do my best. Um, right, so just want to recap. We talked about templates. We talked about transcluding pages, and then on top of that, what we talked about is the ability to change the templates or change variables inside the templates, which allows you to create a template and then change variables inside it so you can change it according to the page. Now, semantic media wikis we talked about allows you to create data structures. So instead of changing a variable, so you'll see I've called the page here, and the variable I've created, I've just said the variable, is wrong. It could be incomplete, it could be anything you want it to be. I've just put it as wrong, and that word wrong has come up there. Now, what you can do, instead of just changing the variable to a text word or whatever, you can create a property. And what I want you to do is to now we need to start thinking like data scientists. We need to, and you start on, sadly when you start using MediaWiki, you start looking at everything as a sort of a database and how it can be stored. So on the Refrata page, if you go to the main page, I've created a Arsenal Football Club page. Hopefully, there it is. Ooh. And this takes us to this page. So, a quick thing about Arsenal Football Club, and I just want to know if any of you can see properties inside this sentence that we could assign to this. Professional football club? Yep. Any others? Yeah, so London, England, absolutely a date. Premier League is a league, yeah. Stadium with the so the stadium you could put the geo coordinates of, yeah. So there's all sorts of things inside this that you can assign properties to. So and that's what we're going to do now. So the syntax is, what you do is you have a property name and you assign that to the to that property. So let me show you this completed. Okay, so as far as you're concerned, oops, maybe I didn't. Oops, there it is. Oh, I suddenly thought I didn't do it. Okay. So below in this text is actually what's written on the edit page, but I've just presented it here. Okay. So this is just showing you what is written. But what you'll see here, so I haven't done professional, but you could have. What I've done is Arsenal Football Club. Then I've assigned a property. So he says has town, London, has country, England, has league, Premier League. Okay. Now, these properties, that the beginning bit on the left hand side, so i.e. has town, you can assign any value you want to it. Okay, you could put A, B, C. You can assign anything to it. You'd be very foolish not to assign a property name that makes it absolutely clear what that is. And even I would argue that something like has town and has country maybe is too generic for this. It might be football club has town. Football club has something. So that property can be as long as you like. I wouldn't recommend it being too long. But the idea is you want a specific property that you can then identify. So if we have more than one town, yeah, sorry.
Why is there no has in front of the founded date?
Yes, so I did that on purpose because has is just a convention that people write, but it's not necessarily what you have to stick to. So I could literally just put the letter A or the letter B. It doesn't necessarily matter.
Yeah, that's maybe also just a remark from my side, because we had tons of properties in the wiki, and as you correctly said in the beginning, really, really think of a convention, how you would name things. And we had a convention internally where we say we don't use this has convention,
Yeah.
because if you then look at your wiki, what properties you have there, you have tons of properties
And under
in
the
H
Yeah.
and only a few in the other. So it's a little bit also difficult to read because you have has. I mean, that's obvious. So we, for example, had the convention to get rid of these. I know that's in the manual everywhere,
Yeah,
but depends on your personal
so when I
taste.
first got into Semantic Media Wiki, I thought you had to have has. You know, as Michael correctly pointed out, you don't have to. You can put any value you want there. It's a bit of a convention that people have put has, and most of the textbooks or the limited amount of textbooks there are on Semantic Media Wiki have has and so on. You just want to make sure it's a clear property name that you are that's distinct and understandable. It's a bit of a pain, as always, to change these things. Okay, so as far as the reader sees, they don't see this bit down here. All they see is this. But they do see broken links because I haven't created those properties. Okay, so you've got has London, has England, so on and so on. So what we're going to do now is create some of those properties. Okay, and what you need to think of now is what is the data type you want of that property. And so what I mean by that is we have a list of data types, which I think so you've got a property, you've got something like a town, and so it says, as far as it says London, and that London is highlighted, and you click it, that would naturally go to a page, London, which describes itself and so on. However, if you had the date 1886, you may want that as a page, and you'd list everything that happened in 1886, one of which being the football club was formed, or you may want that just as a date. And so, again, with any programming, you need to decide what these properties, what values these properties are going to have. So here's a list, I think this is 17 data types that you can choose for the property. And we'll be using, so if you create a property and you don't specify what data type it is, it will default to a page. Which isn't great if you've got if your default should be text, because of course that's going to create a massive long page with all that text. So at any time you can change the property types, and we'll show you how you create a property, how you change those types, and also if it's, let's say, you can also limit what those, so let's say it's days of the week, you know, it has days of the week, and you can limit it to Monday to Friday, or you know, weekday has weekday, it can only be Monday to Friday, you can't select Saturday or Sunday. And that will become more important when we create templates and forms, because it'll make sure that people input the correct values when they're choosing this. Okay, so where was I? I was here. Okay, so I just want to show you what it looks like edit wise. So really, if I cut this away, it could be a little bit confusing. This is what the page would look like to anybody reading it. As you can see, it's just showing you a page with those things. I put that other bit just to show you how it's written. You can see all these things. So if you remember before, we put these, so it doesn't enact anything within the wiki, within those tags. It just shows you that text as the text is written. Okay, so let's choose one of these. Okay, so if we choose London, and I go to London, no, what I want to do is create the properties. My mistake. Okay, so we haven't created any of these properties. what we've done inside the page is we've assigned a value, i.e. property name, and what the property value is. So the first example was has town, and the value was London. Okay, and a different football club that's further north, you know, Manchester United would have has town, Manchester, and the value would be Manchester. And the idea is it then points to that page. But we now need to create these properties. So the way you create these properties, I'm going to show you the manual way, and then we'll get on to the quick way of doing it. But I want you to understand how you create these. So much the same way that you would create. So I'll do it on Refratter, and actually we can turn this into a. So if you go on to. Okay, so if I go to edit this, and I'm going to copy and paste this into here. So I save the page. So this is now a page which has properties assigned to it. And you know it has properties assigned to it because if you now go to browse properties, so sorry, if I go back, let's undo what I did. Don't think I can. Okay, so how do I undo it? I go to history. Oops, it helps if I log in actually. Where have I gone? Oh, did I manage to change? I was allowed to change that without an IP, without the account. Okay, sorry. Okay, so if I view history, okay, I'm just going to go back to this one. So this is before the properties were assigned. Sorry, edit. So I go to here, edit, save page. I've just reverted the changes that I did there. So I wanted to show you something before. So I wanted to show you something before I get onto that page. So I've just gone to the history, gone back to that thing, saved that page, and it's now reverted it back to that previous page. Okay, so if I go here, browse properties, you'll see that there's no properties within this page. No properties have been assigned to this page. Okay, and that's what you expect because all this is at present is just a bunch of text. I now add the text that I showed you on the other wiki that I've pre-created. Okay, where I've manually added these properties. So I've manually added has town, has country, and has so on. Okay. I go to save page. It now shows you all of these red links, which are properties that haven't been created, but it shows you the properties I've assigned. But somebody reading that doesn't even realize that there's properties behind this. So if you go to browse properties, what it does is it shows you these various properties that have been assigned to this page. Okay, so if we had another football club and we have town, so these haven't been created, so let's choose an example. I go to has town. Okay, I'm going to create this page, save page. Oops, don't have to save it twice. Notice that. Okay, fantastic. So I've now got a property page which shows me every time that property has been called within the wiki. So if I come up and think of another football club, so West Ham, I create this. And I write West Ham is located in London, but actually what I want to do is assign that property. So I put has town London, as far as the reader is concerned, all they're going to see is West Ham is located in London, but what's happened behind that is that property has been associated with that club. So I go to Has Town, the property Has Town, and we now have 2 football clubs that have been associated with that. And then, so if you think about it, if all the football clubs are added, all their towns are added, you can search for which clubs are in London, or so on. It doesn't matter what property you assign, it means it's now searchable.
So if I click on London, I will get the 2 football clubs, or how
No,
would that
you
work?
won't. What will happen, and London hasn't been created, that's why it's red. So what we'll show, hopefully we'll have time. If we don't, there's a really good presentation by Carsten, which we're going to link, which teaches you more about queries than you could possibly imagine. What you would do here is you insert a query into this. I'm trying to think. Wait, it's going to be... Sorry? Yeah. Thank you. It's just hash, yep. Thank you. Ask, return, has town equals London. Will that work? We'll see. We're taking a big step forward here, but it's... No, what have I done? Oh, a question mark. Yes. As in there. Is that right? Thank you. So I do have slight... Yeah, please.
So what you have in the second line is the printout you want to have. So that's not the has town. So maybe you're looking for pages with has town assigned.
Yeah.
So the has town statement needs to go behind the ask on the first line, like ask for category football club and has town with double.
So I haven't
column.
I haven't signed it the category yet.
Yeah.
So that's
and you're missing the column behind the ask.
Yeah. That wouldn't work anyway, would it?
Then two brackets, no.
Okay, so we'll show the queries later, but the point is, you assign all those properties to various things, and then you query them. So if you want a current list of all the football clubs, all the Premier League football clubs that are in London, that will keep up to date. And let's say West Ham gets relegated, and they're no longer in the Premier League, that if that's recorded on their page, automatically that page will update because they're no longer a Premier League club, even though they're in London. Those two things haven't been satisfied. But we'll come on to the query. So that is the end game. So you assign the properties, you create an easy way for these properties to be assigned through forms, and then you get onto the queries, which creates pages and makes sure these pages stay live because that information is keeping live. And I'll remind myself how to do queries in a second. Okay, so if we go back to the leave page. Okay, so I've created this page. Let's just delete that for now. Yeah, you've had that a few times, have you? Yeah, no. Right. Let's just go back to leave page. Okay, cool. Who vandalised this? I'll remove that. Well, actually, no. What I'll do is I'll find out who did it. I'll view history, and then I'll ban the person. There it is. It's Billy Cofield, who clearly added losers to my favourite football club. So another good demonstration of you can find out who did what. It's very interesting actually, because a lot of people say so there's two aspects to this. People say you can lock down areas, you can say you can only edit in these pages and so on, but a huge administration burden, and it's weighed up over, are really people going to vandalise, you know, your internal wiki, when you can see NASA said to me in 6 years they've never had people actually vandalise it like Billy has there.
It's a closed community,
Yeah,
so you know who's done it,
yeah,
you know. And but if it was an open community, I could probably go in and do it, and you would never find out that it was me who did it.
exactly. But most of these are examples of where they're used behind firewalls, and I've given you an account, and your name is associated with that account. So I've got you bang to rights. Right. Okay, so all of these properties, so let's just go to the browse properties. Okay, so I've created, I've created the has town, okay? And if I go to that property, as I said, if you edit this page, there's nothing there. So the property's been created, there's nothing there, and all it's done is it's grabbed anything that has the property London and shows you what it is, much like how the categories work. But you will, and what this does is, we talked about property data types, this will default to pages. Now some of these you don't want as a page. 13 is a very good example. Number of titles, if I create that, and I create this page, so I'm just creating has number of titles, and you'll see you've got Arsenal Football Club, and then you've got this number 13, and it says page does not exist. Now you don't want a page that is 13, you know, that doesn't make any sense. So actually what this property should be is a number, okay? And the way you do that is this text here, has type. So on the property page you put has type, and then you specify which data type it is of those 17. But to be honest, the only ones I've used are page, text, number, date, geocoords. You know, most obvious ones. There's some other ones like booleans and stuff like that I've never used. So, you know, you don't, oh, those 17 you're probably going to use 5 or 6. Okay? And if you don't assign anything, it's going to default to page, which clearly is wrong in this case for the number 13, unless you want that, but I wouldn't see why. So, the way I would assign the way I would change this to a number is has type and change that to number, and then save page, and what you'll see is that 13 is not now a page. Do you see? It's a number, so it doesn't link to anything. So you know, if we went to West Ham, I think it'd be 0. Poor West Ham. You know, you would still, that wouldn't create a separate page. So you've assigned that property.
So Ben, I'm not sure if you're mentioning this, but with the data types, I think one important thing is also if you want to sort data later on.
Yeah.
And imagine you have the number 13 as a text property, and you sort them, then you get title 1, then title 13, because it's literally sorting as a text and not as a number. So if it's not a data type number, the computer doesn't understand that 1 is lower than 10. So it's different way of sorting, and I think that's also important to mention when it comes to these number stuff.
That's a really good point. And of course, you can manipulate numbers. So you know, later on, there's the opportunity to do that. So it is, as I said, it will default to page, but a lot of times you don't want it to default to page. And so, as another example, if I go back to Arsenal Football Club, 1886, you know, really that's a date. Well, you know, there's an argument here that you may want a page with the year 1886 and anything significant that happened in that year. You know, so it could quite easily be a date, or it could quite easily be a page. It depends how you want to use it, and that's the beauty of it. You can decide. Okay, so I talked about also limiting what the values could be. So I don't think there's an example in Arsenal that I could limit. Yes, there is. Of course there is. Okay, Premier League. Okay, perfect. So the Premier League, they're only ever going to, the football clubs are only ever, if the top football clubs are only ever going to be in 4 leagues. The Premier League, then there's Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. Okay? So you shouldn't be able to select another league like the Bundesliga or whatever. You just want for the British football clubs only to be assigned any of these leagues. Okay? So that means those are going to be pages. So has type page is correct, but at the same time, come on. At the same time, what you're going to do is restrict the value. Okay? I'm just going to repeat that 4 times. So allows value, Premier League, Division 1. Oop, I don't know what happened there. Press tab, I think. Right. Division 2 and Division 3. Okay. So I've now created a property which is pages, and it's restricted the values of what those pages can be. Now, if I go along to West Ham, actually I'll go back to Arsenal. I'll go back to Arsenal and I'll say not to that one. Sorry, here we are. Oh, what did I do there? I know what I did there. This isn't a property. What did I do? Oh, yeah, sorry. I didn't select. Yeah. Ignore what I did there. I thought it wasn't displaying correctly. That's great. Save page. What I meant to do is click the property. What I clicked is create is Premier League, which isn't the property, of course. It will be in a second as that is assigned. So if I go back to Arsenal Football Club and look at the properties, the has league is where I should have done this. So sorry, it wasn't. So because that's the property. Okay, so it has page, and then it allows these properties. So this is the has league, and as you can see, there's Arsenal Football Club, and they've been assigned the Premier League. So you'll actually see there's a mistake there because that's a capital. Yes, good. Okay, so I made a mistake here because I didn't stick to my manual of style. Okay, so this has Premier League, and it says here Premier League is not listed as possible values. The reason is because I've put a capital here, capital L, and on that one I put a lowercase l. Okay, so you've got to be absolutely strict with your manual style. So obviously I changed that. League, save changes. Property has league, and if I go back to Arsenal Football Club, okay, I'll refresh this page. We've had that a few times. It's okay, we'll survive. It's a forms error. Okay, read, leave page. Okay, so we've lost that exclamation mark, which is telling us we assigned it a wrong value, because it's now aligns with that property Premier League. And so again, if I try to change this to whatever, Bundesliga or whatever, you get an exclamation mark. Now it doesn't matter here, but later on, when you're creating templates and creating forms, assigning those values will give you drop-down lists and give you things to select rather than allowing a free-for-all. So if you're creating a form and you want people to only select out of a certain thing, by, with the property restricting what the value can be, make sure that your users can't go wayward, as it were. Okay, I've shown you a complicated way of creating properties. I'm going to show you the easy way of creating properties now. I'll tell you what we'd do. I'll let each of you create a property. So there is remaining. Yeah, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to open 2 pages. Yep, thank you. Okay. So amongst you, I don't care who, so just decide. If you go to this page on Refratter and you go to these properties, each of you is going to create a property, but you're not going to create it by clicking it. What you're going to do is you're going to go special page, down the bottom here, by page forms, you'll see create property. So you create the property name, you assign the type that you're going to select for that property. So for example, for the town it was page, and then for the number of league things it was number. So work out what type you're going to assign to it, and if you're limiting the values, you value 1, and then you separate them by commas. Okay, so if you want to limit what it can be, you can also do that. So if you do that now, work out who's going to create which property. Go into the Refratter, special, create properties. Make sure your name aligns with what the actual property is called, otherwise it won't work. It'll just be a different property that hasn't been assigned in this. Are there any questions at all? I know it can be a little bit daunting, the properties thing, but as soon as it's all about assigning data. Sorry, Billy, you wanted? What's that? Oh, I thought you were asking a question.
No, I've done Has Manager.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Excellent. Yes, okay. So if I'm just following it, I'll see has managers been created. That's excellent. Okay, and what I'm just trying to show you, so I've shown you the basic, I've shown you how you can manually go through a document and physically create those properties, and I'm also showing you how you create those properties. But I think it's really important to understand those steps, although most of the time and all the time I use it, I will go to special create property, or I'll show you later that I'll go to create class, which involves it creates the forms, the templates, and the properties all in one go.
It can be quite addictive, identifying and creating it.
Yes.
You just keep going and
Okay,
going
so
and going.
really good. Really good point there. So so I talked about this at Houston, and I talked about painting the Forth Road Bridge. You know, the old analogy of it took 4 years to go all the way to the end to paint it, and they'd have to go and start again, and you never stop. And the real danger is that you spend all your time going through and finding all these properties where you've forgotten what you're doing this for. You're doing this for the user, the decision maker. So you need to work out what they need to say. So don't start here and go, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, because there's no point, because they need to see something which doesn't involve all those properties. What will happen is they'll say, can you produce me this? Yes, I can. And you identify those properties. And they'll go, that's amazing, can you produce me this? Yes, I can. And there's only a few more properties. Because if you start over there, nobody appreciate what you're doing. You know, so yes, it can be very addictive. Don't do it. Yes, just say no. Okay, cool. So we're almost there. I just wanted to give you an idea and so on. So you've created those sort of properties and yeah, there's other ones. So actually, has stadium I would have as I'd have as a page, and then within the stadium I'd assign a property geo coordinates, because then you could have a map that searches all the stadiums and puts them on pins on the map. So again, you know, you can display data any which way you want. Okay, so let's get on to templates, and what I'm going to do is we're going to use the warning, the page warning. We're going to use this one. So this is the template that I created previously. I'm going to create a copy of this on here. So I've now created that. I should have put a bullet point to put it on a new line, but let's just go on to there. And all I'm going to do at the moment is just copy across this. And this is what we created before, if you recall. This is what we've created before. And we had a variable inside this that was detail, as in the page is, and it defaults to incomplete if you don't actually fill in anything that actually assigns a value for that template. So what we're going to do now is, instead of having a variable of just text, we're going to have a variable that assigns a property. Okay, so first of all, what we want to do is we need to create a property. So we need to create a property that has page warning. So I'm going to call the property has page warning property. Okay, it's not the greatest name, but it'll do for now. You can be whatever you want it to be. Rather than actually physically creating a page by writing property colon so on, I'll go down to special. Create a property. I've got the property name that I've just highlighted. It's going to be a page, and I want to restrict the values to inaccurate, incomplete, or draft. Okay. So the format's going to be a bit wonky just because I'm copying and pasting it. I separate those values by a comma. So these are the 3 values. And now I've created this property. Okay, has page warning property. It's a page, and you can have these 3 options: inaccurate, incomplete, or draft. Okay, so we now have a template, and we have a template which is a warning page, and the page is incomplete. And as we know, what we have here is this variable, which is the details, and this is the default value if you don't put in a value into that detail. Now this is where it gets a little bit daunting, but just bear with me. Okay. This is how you assign to a template a property. So the property name, you know, it looks daunting, but actually you just put property name in there, property field name in there, and the default value in there. You know, so actually if you ignore this bit for a second, this is what we put in before, because detail, that was incomplete, and all we're doing is putting 2 square brackets around and the property name. So you know, so it's just nested inside the previous value. So if you have that previous template, all you're doing is adding this on top. Okay, so here it is. I put double square brackets that way, double square brackets that way. What did I call the property? I've got it over here. Let's copy and paste it because I'm lazy. And is there anything else? Was there a colon? I can't remember. Yep, two colons there. Okay. Two colons. There we go. Save page. Okay. So you can barely see that, but that's because it doesn't exist. So I'll just create that because it's gone red, and obviously the background's red. So if I just create that, that'll make it blue. So you can read it. Excellent. I'll go back to what links here. Remember that what links here take you back to the link you went out to. Okay, so there you go. So this is the template, but what we've done is we've now created a it's going to add a property. Okay, so if each of you create a random page, don't care what name it is, add this template and then add a value to what it is, and I mean by adding a value here. Now what happens if you don't add one of these 3 values? If you remember, we saw it before, you get the little triangle thing which tells you off. Okay, so it doesn't physically stop, it'll still put the value in there, but actually what you want to do is to create pages with those 3, because then it'll allow us to group them together and search them. So if you can quickly create those pages, I'll create one as well myself, and then we'll just come back and then we'll show you how it groups it all together and has assigned those properties. So as an example, I'm just going to copy and paste that, and then I'll call something like example page. Example page. Doesn't exist, that's lucky. If the page already exists, choose a different page there, and I put incomplete, which is a standard default, so I didn't necessarily need to put it, but it's always good practice to put the variable in to show that, you know, what have I done wrong? Okay, I know what I've so there's a mistake there in the template. Right, let's go to the main page. Template warning page. It's called warning page. Do you see that? I've got page warning and warning page. Make sure you have these things accurate. Okay, so I had page warning there. It's actually warning page. Okay. So if I save the page, it helps if you spell it correctly. Warning page. So of course I was calling a template that didn't exist. So let's try that again. Where? Oops, sorry. Warning. Oh my god, yeah, thank you. It's the pressure. Okay, warning page. 3rd time lucky. Okay, that's the name of the template. It matches there. Yep. and God, I need to stop that. I go to here, I edit, I actually warning page, save the page, and there we go. Okay, looks exactly the same, but what you'll notice is incomplete is now a page, because it wasn't before, it's just text that we put in there. But also, what you'll see here, if you browse properties, we now have a new property, which is, so this property has been assigned to this page, okay, through that template.
I think there's a small mistake in the template itself. As you can see here, you have the property colon here.
Yep.
So that's probably a mistake in the template. So if you go back to that template,
Sorry, to the template, yep.
this is Can you edit?
Yeah, sure.
And in the last line where you say property has page warning property, don't mention the namespace here. The property colon that needs
Spot
to go
on,
away.
thank you. Very good. Right, that was really subtle, but a really good point. So if you look at the value, there's a property colon. It shouldn't have been a property. It should have just been has page warning property, not that property bit, because I wrote property twice, which was incorrect. Thank you. Great spot. So has warning page property. Incomplete, and then if I refresh this, it will, there we go, has warning page property, because we've already created that. And if we go to that, we've got an example page which has incomplete, and if we go to incomplete, eventually you can create a query that will then put all those pages up into that. Did anybody else create any pages? I can't see them on here, so don't do that. Okay, so but you could imagine now that so if you want to make sure that people know that a page is a draft, you can create a property that says page draft. You can put it on the top of that page, big bright red thing saying draft. Don't have a go at us if it's inaccurate, you know. But also what it does is it groups together all those pages with those assigned properties, and they come together, so you can see all the pages in one area that have page warnings, you know, if it's a draft or so on. And so of course now we can create more complicated templates that will allow us to add multiple different values to a single page, and it means that then again, of course, you can have all these pages put together, and we'll try and do that with the pages we created earlier in terms of with the persons we created, what thing they were in, and so on. Okay. So I did the template introduction, and now we're going to do the info box. Excellent. Okay. So in a second we're going to do a exercise. We might stop filming at that point because there'll be about a 5 to 10 minute break. We'll work together, decide it, and then we'll present what's been put together. But one of the key things with Semantic Media Wiki is something called an info box. With Wikipedia is something called an info box, and you'll see it on all sorts of pages. So if you look at whether it be a car, whether it be the Queen, okay, that's pretty small, isn't it? Okay, let's just bring that up. If you see on the right hand side, so info boxes are typically top right hand side, and what people have done is they've generalized or standardized the information that needs to be put together about this page. And this is again the way the collaboration works, that you find there's a sort of standardization in terms of these pages start coming together. So if you look at this talks about who the designer is, the engine size and so on. If we go to the Queen, it talks about who a predecessor was, who her successors would be, who her father was, children, that sort of thing. So really, it's thinking about in terms of what's the sort of the idea of an info box on the right is basically it's a summary of that page in terms of pertinent relevant detail. Now this becomes very useful in Semantic Media Wiki, that you can create a template for this info box and then assign properties to this that then can be searched and found and so on. So you can find, you can start if you have when they're born, and you could search and that they're a monarch, you could search for monarchs that are over 70 or something like that. If you have that data collected, then you can then search for it in various ways and query it. Right, so the exercise I'm going to suggest that we do is we're going to create 2 info boxes, one for people and one for the departments. Okay, so between you, what I want you to do is determine what you want to have on each of those info boxes, and rather than going through creating the properties, creating the templates, you're going to simply go to create template, which is a fantastic tool. So on the special pages, in the page forms section again, we've had the create properties, and this is now the create templates. So I've shown you how you manually do it. Now the disadvantage with create templates is it only has a certain number of template styles that it creates. When you want to create different coloured boxes and so on, while it's a good start and it'll create all the properties for you, you may have to do a lot of editing to get that template to actually look and feel the way you want it to. But for now, for info boxes, it's absolutely perfect. So within the create template, you create a template name. It would be something like person info box. You'd put it in the category, so you put it in category person. So what that means is, and this is really useful, that info box automatically adds the category person, so you no longer need to write category person. The field, sorry. What? Sorry. I'll just do it. Yeah, just do it again. It's old and you should be. So yeah. So there's 2 things here: field name and display name. And the field name, if you remember before, I wrote detail equals. Okay, so when you're going to call this template, so let's say it's called person info box, you'll create squiggly brackets, person info box, and then all these different things: date of birth, department, or whatever, whatever you decide it to be. Within that template, the field name is what you have for that field. So whether it's detail, you just have detail equals and so on. The display name is what the page shows. So while you may put what's a good example? Date of birth in a field name, you'd probably concatenate to a single date of birth with no spaces, while display you'd have perfect date space of birth. So you can have them different. So the display is what the page shows up, and the field is how you assign that property. Okay, so and yes, so you'll have to create those. Okay, perfect. Okay, so first of all, I'll tell you what, let work among yourselves, decide those properties, and then once we've decided them and created them on the page, we'll then work through this create a template. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, do you want to pause it for a sec? Thank you.